Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to continue our look at, and actually wrap up our look at array lists with lesson 7.2, Arraylist of Objects. Now, technically we're not doing anything new here. Okay, we've already been looking at array lists of objects because that's all array lists can hold is objects. But so far we've kept it pretty simple. We've basically done array lists of primitives by utilizing our wrapper classes. And I suppose we already have looked at array lists of strings. Okay, but today we'll get into array lists of kind of our self-created class objects and go through some of the implications of when we have array lists of slightly more complicated data objects. So first off, let's remind you how to create an array list. Okay, so we'll tell Java what we want. We want an array list of some class. And here we're going to tell Java what type of class our array list is holding. And again, array lists can only store objects. So if I want to hold an array list of ints, I have to put in here the integer class, okay, the wrapper class for ints, okay, or doubles or strings. And really what can go here is any type of class, okay, whether it's a pre-built one in Java or something we write ourselves. That'll be kind of what we look at today. We will give that array list a reference variable, and we'll say new array list, and we can use this constructor for it without the class name there. That's fine. And what this is going to do is it's going to make a list reference variable that holds an address, okay, of an array list, which starts out empty. Okay, array lists always start up empty. And we say again, list is a reference to an array list. So let's take a look at a simple class that we can use to create array lists of. Let's say we have the dog list class. What does the dog have? Well, the dog looks like we care about the age and the name. Constructor assigns that age and name. We have getters for the age and the name. And then also a toString, which would be very helpful when we're putting this in an array list. Okay, we're going to return dog dash name plus age. Okay, just the information from that dog. So if I want to make an array list to store dog objects, I'll say array list, and then the pointy braces put the type object I want, in this case, which is a dog object. We'll give it a name. We'll say dog list equals new array list of dog objects. Now, I do want to fill in that object name. It's going to make the compiler catch a few more errors than it would if I left this blank, especially as we get into some inheritance stuff in the next few chapters. Okay, but if you left it blank for now, we'd be okay. And the above code, the list above stores references to dog objects. Okay, so we have an array list that stores dogs. And then again, array lists always start out empty. So to fill that up, we'll use the same add method, the same way we would with ints or doubles or strings. Okay, and when we call the add method on our dog list, I can either have some dog objects pre-created and pass those in. Okay, or I can just create the dog object within the add method. I can say new dog Fred 11, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a dog object, add it to my array. Now there'll be no other way to access this Fred outside of my array, but the array stores it so I have access to it. Okay, we can do the same thing with a dog Ann, who's 21, and then my array list is filled. When I go to print the array list now, what it's going to do is, like we know, array lists have a built-in print method, or not a print method, but a toString method. And what it's going to do then is it's going to go through the list and call the toString for each of those objects. Okay, the toString we showed you said dog dash and then name age. Okay, so it's going to call that toString for each object in the list. All right, real quick, kind of visually what's happening when we create and fill our array list with objects. Okay, so let's say I have that dog list and I add 3 dogs to it. What we have in our array list is, again, the array list doesn't actually store the objects. It holds the references to the objects, or their memory addresses. And then each of these addresses would point off to a different dog object, okay, off in the memory heap. Okay, so technically our array list doesn't actually store the object, but stores the addresses to where we can find those objects. And then as far as accessing those objects, let's say we want the dog at index 1. We'll go dog list, the name of the array list, dot get, and pass the index in. That's going to give us access to the object there. And then kind of the one new part today is we're going to go dot again and call another method. So if I go dot get name, that accesses the name of the dog, okay, stored in that location. Okay, so this will be a common pattern we use, and we'll show you one way to kind of simplify this as we go through. But we want the list name, okay, get the object from that list name, and then dot whatever method we're going to use to kind of gain access to that object's methods or variables. So let's take a look at one example chunk of code that kind of utilizes that double dot notation. Then also in a minute we'll show you how to kind of avoid doing it as well. So let's take a look at a chunk of code, and it looks like this is going to find the oldest dog, okay, the dog with the greatest age. So first off, let's assume dog list contains a list of dog objects. We'll create a string for oldest. We'll leave it blank for now. And then here's one trick that I don't know if we've seen so far. But let's say I want to find the maximum. What I could do is I could set the initial max to 0. But that's not going to work if we are including negative numbers. Doesn't matter in this context. But one trick I can do is I can use the integer class's min value, which will be the smallest possible number stored in Java. And then as I go through my list, I know that I'm starting with the smallest possible, so I'm never going to have any issues kind of finding the maximum. Okay, and again, that'd be nice if I had negative numbers. I could start off with the smallest possible negative number and then solve from there. Okay, so 0 would work here, or that integer.min value. Or I suppose we could just set it equal to the first age in our list. Okay, it looks like we're going to loop through the dog list. So our counter variable I is going to start at 0. It's going to loop while I is less than doglist.size and go up by 1 every time. And then again, here's that kind of double dot notation if doglist.getI, so in other words, the ith dog in the list, dot get age, so we're getting its age, is greater than max. We'll reset the oldest to doglist.getI.getName. Okay, so getting the name of the ith dog list element. And then reset the max to doglist.getI.getAge. Again, the big thing I want to go through here is kind of this double dot notation where we have our list, we get an element, and we call another method on that element. And then from there, we'd print that off. All right, now let's take a look at a chunk of code that can simplify, okay, that last bit of code we looked at. Okay, that's going to be utilizing a for each loop. And remember, a for each loop, or the enhanced and for loop, doesn't work in all situations. But when possible, I'd recommend use it, especially when we're dealing with array lists of objects with other methods we're calling. We'll show you why. So same idea, we've got the dog list. We'll make a string for oldest, set it to nothing, and we'll start our max off as the minimum value in Java. And then we're going to loop for every dog object, we'll call it D in dog list. So this is going to loop through our whole dog list. We can say if d.getAge is greater than max. And this is where our enhanced for loops really start getting handy. With a normal for loop using indexes, I had to go doglist.getI.getAge. But here, since this enhanced for loop is just going to go through each dog object D, I can just say d.getAge greater than max. And then the same thing, we can say oldest gets d.getName, max gets d.getAge. Okay, by using this enhanced for loop, we really simplify the code there. If I flip back, I'd say this is a lot cleaner, just d.getAge, than the previous doglist.getI.getAge. So we can use that enhanced for loop to kind of simplify the process there. All right, that's it for 7.2. Again, technically nothing new, but we put emphasis on what's happening when those objects, especially from classes we create, are stored in array lists. Okay, start working on some programs, start cranking out some code. Let us know if you need any help, and we'll see you folks next time.